We were in prayer when you started.
It's the secrets that make us sick. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge. So let's have a conversation. It's time. We're taking it out of the box. Yeah. We're taking it out of the box. We're taking it out of the box. You know it's time. So let's talk about it.
Everybody, you know what night it is. You know what time it is. It is Tuesday night at 7 p.m. and it is time for Outside the Box. Let me just do some technical clicks here, and then we will get started. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We do have a great show planned for folks, so I'm excited to get started. Um, who's that? Okay. So tonight we're talking about something extremely. We did this show, I think, middle part last year, so probably about a year ago, where we talked about church hurt, and we heard a lot of conversation about folks who have experienced hurt within the church environment, and how many times that hurt is assigned as a fault of the leadership. And I wanted to make this opportunity to really talk about how leadership views their own hurt with things that happen within the walls of the church, particularly as it relates to interaction with members, requests, and um, demands on your time and all of that. Let's get Dr. Jude in with us as well. And so before we get started with the hurt, look at the shot. He didn't fell out last.
Gone
Man,
already.
he came in here sideways.
I'm just saying, you see him, right? You see him, right? You see
So
Jude.
before we get started with actually the topic, let me ask you, and I'm gonna start with you, man. What do you like about pastoring?
What do I like about first? Bishop Wright, thank you, man, for including me with this great um, gathering of minds. All of these brothers I know well, and I'm appreciative of being included amongst this number. What do I like about pastoring? I love the ability to help shape a group of people's spiritual walk and journey via through the preaching and teaching of scripture, also through the leadership. I just love being able to affect the change in somebody else's life. I love that. I've done a number of professions before I started pastoring. Everywhere from I worked at a phone company to a beeper company. Remember, y'all too young. Y'all don't know
Hey,
nothing about
you
beepers.
you telling your age
Don't
now,
don't
man.
you do it? Don't you do it?
Let me find man. I had a teal one. Let me find my teal plate.
Kevin, don't do it. Don't do it. I've done it all, and this is the only thing that. And I know what the topic is, and we're gonna deal with some of that stuff tonight. But this is the only thing I've done where I felt a sense of fulfillment, because I'm able to, and not a Jude, don't start, because I'm able to affect change and lead people on a journey.
Pastor Free, let me hit you, and I'm gonna ask you this question. As a pastor, do you find it difficult to
Hold on, is he in the bed?
I think so. Yeah.
Jude. Oh, this is gonna be good tonight. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Pastor Free, do you find it difficult to balance your personal life and your church life, or is it also intertwined that you really don't? There's no separation.
Well, first of all, I just spent the last 5 minutes thinking of an answer to what you asked, man, and then you're gonna throw me a completely different question.
A completely different question.
So I'm gonna be honest. Like, I kind of grew up a church boy. That's all I know. Every single Sunday, I had to go. Shout out Deshard Freeman #record. Listen, every part of my life is church. So to me, ain't no such thing as personal or separate. And I ain't tripping about that. Like, I love the church. If I get some downtime, I'm gonna go look for some other church to be in. That's just kind of who I am. I didn't start having trouble with church until I became a pastor. And so most of the time, if I'm hanging out in the leisure, individuals from the church are with me, or preachers are with me. So for my personal life, there's not much separation, and I can't say that that's healthy, but that's my reality. Like, right now I'm at the church, and when we finish with this, I'm gonna chill at the church. I'm watching a series called The Ranch. I love it, and so I stay up here all times of the night going through this series. I don't know did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay. I was y'all all had that look on your face, that blank look.
So, Pastor Jude, let me get to you. What was the most difficult part about pastoring?
Pastoring for me would have been wonderful had it not included people.
Okay.
Oh God.
I mean, you brought me here. I was going to barbecue, so I'm here.
Tell it how it is, sir.
No, I'm sworn to be circumspect tonight. The most difficult part was having to deal with people, their attitudes, the fact that there was one of me and hundreds of them. So we were forced to deal with 100 different attitudes and ideas that really amounted to very little in the total scheme of things. And I still say today to anybody who desires to pastor, help yourself. But also keep in mind that when you deal with sheep, you have to deal with sheep dip as well. Sheep dip will get on your shoes because you have to be in the field with the sheep. And sheep dip is a generic term for fertilizer.
Okay, I'm sorry, Pastor Drew, but I had to interrupt you. I live in Texas, but I'm from New Jersey. I had no idea
for that.
I have no idea what dip is. So yeah, okay, I got it.
I grew up hearing the term, to be polite, bovine fecal matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I refer to it as fertilizer. We have to be we have to be wise enough to turn waste into usefulness.
Okay. All right. Bishop Foreman, my question for you is,
the saved one. Give us a saved answer.
if you were, and I know we've talked about this before, but
Right.
if you could do anything else, would you do this?
You know what? I will be 100% honest. I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want to pastor pastors. I didn't want to be a bishop. This was not my desire. This was God's desire. And I will say that to give context to when God calls you to do something, he equips you to do something. That doesn't make it any easier. It just means you have the equipment to do it. For those that have saw, we just had Memorial Day. Those soldiers gave up their life knowing that was one of the risks. It didn't make it any easier, although they had the equipment to get them through that process. And so I will be honest, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy if they weren't called, because you won't have the equipment to deal with it. And the reality is that not having that equipment, you have a few different outcomes where you can have people who become disenchanted with the church. You can have individuals that become disenchanted with God. It's interesting to look at the statistics, Bishop, because here are the numbers. The numbers tell us 1,700 pastors quit every single month. 4,000 new churches open while 7,000 churches close every year. Pastor is on a list of professions is just above used car salesman at the bottom. 66% of church members expect a pastor and their family to live at a higher moral standard than theirs. Now, which is interesting because they expect their pastor to do what they won't do and they can't do. You don't expect that from your hairdresser. Your hairdresser's hair is a mess. Your doctor may not necessarily be healthy, so on and so forth. 50% of pastors report that they feel so discouraged they would leave if they had another way to make a living. 50% of pastors starting out will not last 5 years. 1 out of 10 pastors will actually retire as a pastor in any form. 70% of pastors constantly fight depression. 40% of pastors report a serious conflict with a member every month. 75% of pastors report significant stress-related crises at least once in their ministries. Doctors, lawyers, and clergy have the most problems with drug abuse, alcoholism, and suicide. To Pastor Jude's point, 85% of pastors say the greatest problem is they're tired of dealing with problem people, and 90% say the hardest thing about ministry is dealing with uncooperative people.
So when you hear those numbers, all you pastors, then why the hell would you continue to do it?
Well, Bishop he stated it at the beginning of his remark. He didn't want to do it. He was called to it. That's why you do it, because the call is greater than my desire.
Yeah.
And then there are so many others who do it because they actually don't know anything else to do. And I'm not picking on him. I'm pulling him out. Deshard was made for this. I don't know of any job my cousin has ever had. Long as we've known one another, Deshard's been a pastor and he's doggone good at it. He makes it work for him, even though it may not always work for him.
That's how you know he's really good.
He works to make it so. I don't know if we pull Shard away from ALC, could he survive somewhere else? And please forgive me for saying this, other than a club singing music because he's vocally gifted enough. Now, outside of that pastoring, I got lucky, and I use that term loosely because I have a plethora of other things I can do. Now, and I gave
Job
up.
is full of bovine excrement because he basically just saying I can't barbecue, so I can't start a smokehouse. But there's some other things that I could do. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to do it. And I done told Jube helped me write my my resignation letter. I said send me one, but it was all misspelled and stuff, and so I had to go back and fix it. But I've been ready to quit many a times. The problem is I'm afraid to be outside of God's will. To be honest, that's the only reason why I keep doing it. I've looked into various careers that I think I could adequately, kind of make more money, maybe even make what I would consider a greater impact or happier life. But I'm scared. I'm gonna put it like that. I'm afraid of what might happen if I decide to do what I want to do.
Let me jump in
because I can make sandwiches, Jube. I can have a sandwich shop.
I've got buddies. I got buddies across the country who shared this with me, and one of them is on this call, Bishop Kevin Foreman. He shared, and helped me see something. He shared that pastors ought to always have multiple streams of income, also ought to have multiple spaces.
Oh, we lost you.
Or our financial well-being. It's for our families, and so this is what I've been called to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I can't stop doing. But I think we all also have to have other avenues to keep the balance.
You said something that I really want to clarify. You said this is what I'm called to do, and this is what I want to do. Do you think that you could do it if you didn't want to, only because you were called to?
I think you can separate. This I can speak for me. I think you can't separate the call from my desire. I may get tired. I may get frustrated. There are days I want to quit. There are days I want to walk away from it. But inside of me, the call is so great that my call and my want ties into the call on my life. I cannot walk away until the call ends, no matter if I want to. And that's just me. I can't, other guys have different testimonies, different walks of paths that they've gone. For me, my call and my wants tied in and walked in line with my call, that I cannot walk away until the call is in.
All right. So now
I think the Lord calling man a lot because he keep messing with his internet.
I mean, your internet is fluttering, sir.
I live in the country. Y'all know that. Paris is not Austin. Paris is not Fort Worth.
When I was in Paris, my internet worked fine.
So
Raymond, don't you do that?
So when we get to the heart of the matter and we talk about hurt, let's start with you, Pastor Freed. What hurts you, or what has hurt you? Let's start there.
I'm gonna be honest. My biggest source of hurt has been disloyalty. Is a close second, but my biggest source of hurt is when you feel like you're putting in the energy, the effort, the time, the money to accomplish the vision, and then other people just kind of approach it like, if we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. Trying to cast a vision and raise the standard of expectation of excellence among the people, but then the work of the ministry is like a secondary priority to them. That's really been the most hurtful thing, because I try to do everything I do as unto the Lord. And when I feel like the people are not approaching it with that same perspective, man, that runs me real low. But then disloyalty is another. When you didn't, pay car notes and cut people's lights on and bought Pampers and all that stuff for people who will get mad and walk away because, you didn't speak one day. That kind of stuff. That's a second level of hurt that's kind of hard to handle.
So when because I mentioned that before to somebody talking about my own experience, and their reply to me, and I want to get your gut reaction to this. Their reply to me was that, but the call is yours, it ain't mine.
Well, my mama told me not to do no cussing tonight.
She did.
And so the best thing I could say is that would prove their ignorance, because the calling is not just mine. The calling to serve the Lord and to establish his kingdom on earth and to seek the lost and to take care of widows and orphans and all that ain't got nothing to do with just the pastor. That's the call for the people of God. And I think that's the problem. Most church people put too much weight, too much responsibility on the preacher. And so consequently, a lot of them are not doing their part because they're expecting somebody else with a title to do it. And that's unfortunate. So tell that person I said that was an ignorant thing to say.
I definitely will pass that along. Pastor Jude, when you're struggling building this thing from the ground up, and you're putting in all your sweat, all your tears, all your effort, turning money back in, what really, when you said earlier it's people, what do you mean?
In accord with what DeShawty says, loyalty rings real loud with me. And if I can get in, roll up my sleeves, get muddy and dirty in an effort to make this thing as good as I can for you, I'd like to see you get in right along with me, and let's shovel some of the same mud, some of the same dirt. I've always said while I was pastoring, don't serve me. Come in and serve with me, right alongside with me, so that you can know how it feels when we're in the throes of this thing, when we're up to here with it. We're up to here together. It's not just me doing it and you sitting back after it's done saying, look what we've done, when we weren't the ones who have done it. Everybody get in together. It's an old adage, it's cliche. It does take teamwork to make the dream work. But I don't want to be the one man team. And I was that one man team for so long until I just burned out, fizzled out. My wax was gone, my wick was burnt up, I had no heat, and you're there, you're running on fumes. I ran on fumes for years, man. For years. My gas light was not blinking. Lance, it was on. It was on and it was bright. It showed me everything but a gas station, though. There was nowhere for me to fuel up. When I was preaching for you guys, y'all don't know how much of a shot in the arm it was to wait 7 hours in DFW Airport to go preach for Kevin. To be there to say, this is the shot in the arm I need to start me off for next year. To show up, to preach for free, to laugh and joke, because I couldn't get that at home because nobody was putting in as much effort. To go to Lance in Paris, of course, and hang out just for a day. Y'all guys don't know the angst I was under, the angst I was feeling because I was the only one. You know, when you're running 35, 40 revivals a year, you're splitting your income between your house and your church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bishop, if you ever came, was there ever a time when you came and you obviously had to be, talked right down by the Spirit, by your friends, by me, but have you ever experienced, what was a prevailing moment that really caused you to question, do I keep forward? Do I press harder? Do I move forward?
Great question. I would say this, and I appreciate the candid nature of this conversation. If a person doesn't doubt their call, they're not called. If you don't doubt the veracity and the integrity of what it is you've been called to do, everybody God used in that book doubted it. You go from Moses, I can't speak, I can't do that. Gideon, I'm the least of my clan. Every single person God called, they question him as to the call. So many are called, few are chosen. Chosen in Greek, it means approved. And I think for me, the reality is I come from a business background. I started ministry when I was 12. I started in music ministry and built up and simultaneously was in ministry and in business. And so when I came into ministry, I didn't come into ministry needing anything. I came into ministry having been accomplished already, having built Denver's largest African-American owned real estate finance business. Why do I mention that? Because I didn't come into ministry out of any level of deficit. I came into ministry completely out of call. That being said, in that, I had an expectation that that was not necessarily met. And part of that was my issue, because I had an expectation that was based off of this business background that I had, where I said, well, Lord, you've been so good over here. I'm just knowing that it's going to be true over here. So our first service ever, we have over 100 people. That's because I stacked the deck. We had every dancer, every singer, every twirler, every flag bearer, everything. 7 people. And then we watched God do something amazing. But the truth is, even though we were experiencing success, other pastors, and I say this jokingly, but I think the brethren will understand. They would have, other pastors would have slit somebody's throat to see that type of success. I felt like a failure. So in 2012, I stood in my bedroom and I said, God, maybe I'm not praying it the right way. So I remember the movie Ten Commandments when Charlton Heston says, what have I left undone? And he did it like this. So I was like, maybe I need to do that. So in 2012, I stand in my bedroom and I throw my hands up, Pastor Free, like this and said, what have I left undone? Here's what he said. He says, you're a miracle and you don't know it. So I began to look at the statistics and the numbers, et cetera, to really begin to study my craft in a different way and really recognize the miracle that we were. And I came to this simple conclusion, several things, but just to simplify, I came to this simple conclusion that what I was doing was not the issue. How I was doing it was the problem. What I was carrying wasn't the issue. The way I was carrying it was the problem. So it began to transform my entire process, my entire mentality about how I approach what it is that I do. And so in those moments, to answer your question, Bishop, in those moments, I learned the importance of not depending on, many pastors make their congregations extensions of their family. And while I respect that, here's what I had to do for me, is realize that while I love the people that I lead, at the end of the day, surgeons aren't friends with their patients. And so I had to learn to create just a variety of different lessons. I had to learn how to approach what I do differently.
And was that for your own sanity or for your
sanity? And two, because I didn't want to be a pastor that was mad all the time and ticked off all the time and suspicious in a negative way all the time with people, because you get betrayed, you get lied on. You have people who will make up stuff because you won't give them what they want. They will lie on you. You will have women that lie on you. You will have men that lie on you. You will have people you never touched, talked to, ever looked at lie on you. You will have, and I began to experience all these types of things. And I said, God, this is a whole mess. I said, it's one thing. And here's the thing. I said, it's one thing if there was any level of accuracy. And I was just mad about it. I said, but these ninjas are just making up stuff, pulling stuff out. And I said, God, is it worth the warfare? Is it worth the warfare? And I just had to really change my whole approach and say, you know what? It's not what I'm doing. It's the way I'm doing it. And I got free. Can I be real honest, Bishop? And I didn't actually get this until last week in church. And I had to get this. Moses had made an idol out of the people, because Moses, God says, Moses, I will start over, me and you. These people are part of your call. So they're right. It is your call, but I invited them on it. I will start over with me and you. What did Moses do? No, Lord. No, I need these people. No, Lord, don't let it be done, et cetera, et cetera. God said, I gave you an opportunity to pick me over the people. You pick the people. And I think many times as shepherds, I can speak for myself. We pick the people and make an idol out of them.
wow?
And the idol we've made out of them is their attitude affects us in a way it ought not affect us. Their performance affects us in a way it ought not affect us. Because at the end of the day, baby, whether you do it or not, it's going to get done. Whether you do what you're supposed to do or not, it's going to get done. So for me, I had to look back and say, you know what? You made an idol out of these people and didn't even realize that you had done it. So I had to do that for my own sanity. And then I just said, I don't want to be a mean, mad, angry preacher. I don't want that.
Wow. So I have a question. From somebody that, let me find it and then I'll post it. All right, here we go. What do you attribute the decline in respect for the pastor in the Black community? Pastor Mann, let me start with you. And is that an accurate narrative? Is there a lack or a decline of respect in the Black community? And if so, what do you think contributes to it?
First, to answer the last, yes, it is accurate. There is a decline in respect for what we do, who we are in our communities, and it's not an either or, it's an and answer, meaning it is, and I'm going to be brutally honest, it's people's fault and it's our fault as well. It's our fault because far too many of us have, and I can, without going into the laundry list, but far too many of us have engaged in behavior before people, whether you're in private or in public, and it's caused people to lose confidence in who we are and to lose respect in who we are. Bishop?
Yeah, listen, let me look. I'm doing like that because y'all Baptists, I got to do this. I agree with Pastor Mann, but here's what I'll say. There is a decline in respect for leadership, period.
I agree with that.
It is not just the black pastor, because let's be honest, the black pastor in the black community is the last thing you got as it relates to the cultural things, political things. So you cannot hurt your health. And unfortunately, many sheep are guilty of biting the hand that they wanted to feed them.
I was going there. I was going there. I was going there.
There is a lack of respect for leadership across the board. You got people won't show up for a job they're getting paid for. You got people won't follow procedures on the company they're paid for. We have a culture now that is entitled, and it is not just a millennial thing. So we can kill that. This is every age bracket, every background, every race, every pedigree. There is a disrespect for leadership, period. You have in the home, you have a disrespect for male leadership, period. Let's go there. So it is not just it is not just the reality of the black church and the black church this and the black church that. No, the reality is the church is simply a microcosm of the culture. That's all it is. So that's what we're seeing in the culture. People disrespect anybody because social media has made everybody accessible. So now, consequently, people will pull anybody down so that they feel better about their own issues. So it's easier for me to feel better about me if I can look at your stuff and see you got stuff too.
Wow.
I wanted to hear what man was finna say.
Well, the flip side of it is not just our shortcomings, but Jesus talked about this in Revelation. Jesus says, you hate the Nicolaitans as much as I do. The Nicolaitans, I'll take civil Bible study, are followers of a man named Nicholas, one of the first deacons. Nicholas held the money.
That might be one of the problems. That might be one of the problems.
Well, and I agree. It's this idea of a lack of just general respect for what Bishop was saying, of leadership. Who are you to tell me I'm not living right? You just a man like I am. And so I'm grown. I don't have to listen to you. And they bring that kind of worldly everyday activity into the church. And they look at us free and they say, you know, I talk to my boss this way. I'm gonna talk to you the same way. I treat mama like this. I'm gonna treat you the same way. And so it's not an either or, it's an and that has caused the serious decline in respect for what we do, as Bishop Foreman said, that's a microcosm of the world. But I can only speak for me and my sincere desire and prayer. I don't want to be a public success but a private failure. So I work on me and pray that everybody else comes along. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I got a list.
Okay.
Anybody else hearing the echo?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know where it's coming from. But so I got a short list. To a certain extent, I agree with Bishop Foreman that there's a decline in respect for leadership, period. But then I also think the decline for black pastors, the decline in respect for black pastors in the community is more drastic. And I think it is for several reasons. One, people don't respect the word. And the word is what tells people how to respect, honor, and treat the pastor. And if you don't respect the word, you won't follow it. People don't really care much for Jesus right now, if we were to be honest. And if we represent Christ and there's no honor for him, why would there be honor for us? I think social media plays a huge part because, well, let me say thirdly, the behavior of many pastors has been a part of it. We got to own that. A lot of pastors have done some shady junk, and sometimes a few become the representation of the whole. But the fourth part that follows that to me is, so pastors been kind of doing some of the same stuff throughout the history of the Black church, but social media now puts it on the forefront and puts it on blast. And so I think that's one thing. Now there are alternatives. The Black church used to be the epicenter of the African-American community. You went there for help. You went there for hope. You went there to build political strength, the whole nine. Now we got all types of community movements that pop up where we are that seem to take the steam out of the church, if you will, or compete with the church for these various things. And then I also think church people play a huge part. If the people who are active, faithful, leading in the church don't respect pastors, why would people in the community, right? If you in the barbershop talking about your pastor crazy, then why are the other people in? That wasn't no cuss word. That I say nigga all the time. Why? And maybe I should. Maybe that's a weakness for me. Maybe that's why people don't respect pastors, because this one on the stream was talking about nigga. I don't know. But I'm saying if the Negroes at the church don't respect the pastor and they, talking crazy or disrespecting the man of God in the public square, then it won't be long before the community follows suit. But what I will say, and I stand behind this statement, Deshard Freeman gets more respect in the community than I get in the church. Because of my six, I don't know where I am on the list, 6 or 7. One of the biggest reasons that the Black preacher is minimized and respected in the community is because of other Black preachers.
Whoa.
Most of the time, if you find a negative reputation, whatever behind a Negro preacher,
Freeman.
if you dig long enough, if you dig long enough, you're going to hear from another Negro preacher in the chain.
Free, let me say this. You are getting ready to go down a topic that one needs to be talked about. But number two, that's a whole nother broadcast Roy got to do.
Jude shook his
nother
hand in violent agreement.
That's something that'll take 2 weeks to deal with.
Wow.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Okay. All right. Man, y'all making me scratch my head here. All right. So let me we're gonna come back to that, Free. I'm just telling you, I'm gonna come back to that in just a minute, because that really struck me pretty tough here. I want to answer this question from somebody, and then I have another question. The question says, do you think that pastoring from the pulpit versus the old school home visits and tract ministry style of leadership is a part of the current problem in churches today? I don't know. Bishop, you're muted.
I was trying to stop that, hear that echo coming in. But I would say this: I think every pastor is going to have a different style and a different approach. There's different fits for different people. But this, I know you want to move on, Bishop. This is your show, and I will respect you moving on. But the other thing we need to talk about too, when we have that conversation about other Black preachers, we need to talk about, just because microcosm, church is a microcosm, is the disrespect of a Black man, period. Because the substratum might be in the church, but the bigger issue is that, especially in this nation, there is a disrespect for the Black man, period. So, which should be expected when we see what they did to Jesus and all the others. But at the end of the day, that needs to be a part of that discussion, because all of that stuff is cultural, and it just makes its way into the church.
You talking
So
good, Reverend.
so Pastor Jude, I don't know what it is today that everybody is telling me about the echo. I'm getting notices from all different directions. And so I will say, let's try to mute when you are not actually speaking, and then unmute when you speak, and that will help. So Pastor Jude, when you got to the point, you say your gas tank was steady on. What made you finally say, I'm done?
2018, no 17, when we were expected to have a pretty big date. Matter of fact, let me go back. 2016, my anniversary, pastor's anniversary, Founders Day. Free came to preach. The day didn't go anything remotely close to what we had expected. We had a good day, and we had a good day because the word that was preached that day spoke to everybody in the house. But the worship that day sucked the life out of me, like literally dried me out. I don't know if Free remembers me just crying because I could not muster up the courage to even have the joy I should have had for Founders Day. And I said then to myself, I can't keep going like this. Could not. And when I finally got the courage, I don't know, you guys are going to think me weird when I say this. When I got the courage to give up is when I found the strength I needed to keep going. And I did it for another year and a half. And I finally, after having that one-on-one talk with God, knew that I'd be okay outside of the pastoring as long as I didn't leave the pulpit. And guys asked me, man, do you miss pastoring? My honest answer is no. I don't miss preaching because I'm in somebody's pulpit just about every Sunday. And there's sometimes I have to say no because I'm booked. And I'm grateful for that. But pastoring for me perhaps wasn't the same as pastoring for you guys. It grew me, yet it crippled me all at the same time. Because while I was preaching life, I was getting the life sucked out of me. So am I going to forever push you guys? Man, yeah. I want to see you go as far as you can go. Do I want to go with you? No. Y'all go. Have fun. And make sure you're staying within the will of the Lord. Now, here's my situation now. I get to do more ministry now, not pastoring, than I did when I was. And when I say ministry, I've given away scholarships, not pastoring. I've fed homeless countless numbers of times, not pastoring. I've been able to feed families for holidays without having to call a meeting to get it done. So I'm grateful for the years I did serve as pastor, but I'm also grateful for what I'm permitted to do now. And it's going on 4 years. And I tell guys I'm on break. I just happen to be really enjoying it.
I think we got to redefine what pastoring means, because I don't think that what you're doing is any less pastoring than a person who's preaching every Sunday in the same spot and whatever, because you do counseling, it's the whole nine. And I think we got to redefine how we use this term pastoring.
I think by and large in our community we viewed pastoring as the guy with the name on the sign, the guy who's giving the leadership to the people who follow within the church. I think.
Well, see, now you're getting back to the nigga preacher discussion that we try not to have.
My apologies, sir. Uh, I think I am pastoring just as vehemently now from the smokehouse or through the smokehouse than I was, or as I was actually, as that late the question says, standing in the pulpit or calling uh, meetings. It some days I feel like Joe the bartender. You understand? Joe the bartender. Don't none of y'all get excited. Joe the bartender, because people go to the bar, I'm told, to tell what's going on in their lives to the bartender. So there are days
I'm
when I
told.
stand at the counter uh, and I have to listen, not have to, or choose to listen to everything that is going on. I prayed for just as many people in the smokehouse as I have when I was pastoring.
And you probably get paid better now.
I'm gonna say something. Free. You said something, and you might not even realize how major you just said in talking to Jude. You said we need to redefine what pastoring is.
We do.
Most people think that pastoring is the one who preaches every Sunday. Preaching is just one part of pastoring, and I think
Small part.
that's with a small part. And I think you with a lot of is they only view us as the preacher. And if I don't preach Sunday,
Then I'm not the
I'm
pastor.
still the pastor because my pastoring, it's more, infinitely more than me getting up to preach every Sunday. And I think that lies in to part of the issue of hurt in the initial topic we've been talking about is people lose respect for who we are in totality of our call, and they reduce us to just what we do on Sunday morning. I'm more than what I am on Sunday morning as a pastor. That's just 35, 40 minutes. I pastor Monday through Sunday. Yeah, Jude.
You're muted, Bishop Bright.
All right, come on, dude. What you gonna say?
May I offer this? One of the things that I believe causes so much of the hurt among the pastoral aggregation is that we're very seldom given the opportunity to do what we've been called to do, which is to lead and love people. As we begin to lead, then we are told this is how we're supposed to lead. When we begin to love, well, you're not loving on this one the way you're loving on that one. I wrote on Facebook, I think it was today or last evening, shout out to the pastors who got kicked out of their churches for the very same reason they got called to their churches. And none of us, I think with the exception of Kevin, have gotten called to churches based on anything other than our preaching ability. Kevin and Free, birth and planted that church. I got called to two and planted one. The two I got called to because I just preached circles around the other cats. I mean, I ain't bragging, I'm testifying. The gift is mine. I preached circles around them cats. And then after you discovered I could preach circles around and preach you under the table, shake you like dice, call 7-Eleven, drag you back out. Then you got mad for the same reason you called me in the first place. Because we can preach. You can't do a thing with an African-American preacher who's anointed and gifted, who is able to preach. Because if you tick him off and you let him get to the pulpit, he's going to show you why you called him in the first place.
Well, while we talking about preaching, for the sake of my preaching brand, I need to clarify that it's all about perspective, because you made it like, don't call Freeman, because if he preached for you, you'll quit. And that ain't what you said. You said he's such a man of God that he kept me in the race a year and a half. I just need to make sure folks hear it correctly, or my phone stop ringing. Yeah, I don't call free here.
So you want Bishop Foreman and Pastor Lance Man to make sure that if they call you, that they not
Yeah.
Let me
We all know.
My family got to eat.
say this.
We all
Let me
know
say
the
this.
card. We
Let
don't
me
need.
say
He ain't
this,
got
man.
to say that.
Let
He
me
ain't
say
gotta
this
say
for
that.
everybody who is listening. The man is a preacher. The man is a gift to the body of Christ. His message that day kept me in ministry, in pastoring, longer than I wanted to be there. So in context, I'm
Your
saying
check is in the
this,
mail.
I mean, keep the check. Check with me later. In context of it
I
all,
want the check.
I was gonna say PO Box 44100.
split the check between
I
them.
want the check, bro.
In context, it kept me there longer than I intended to stay.
So here's a comment. Yes, a member can get edification and life and have the life sucked out of them as well. It can go both ways. We can do it all as members and be told to do more. Double-edged sword.
So let me jump on that. So two things. One, I love what Patrick said because I think his example is a great example of you are doing. I think it was necessary. This is just me from the outside looking in. It was necessary for you to go through that process to see what the right seat for you to do what your call was. Everybody is not called to do this the same way. Everybody doesn't have the capacity to do this the same way. Everybody doesn't have, people say they want this and that and this and that. Well, can you manage a multi-million-dollar budget? Can you manage staff? Can you manage all of the various facets that come with that? So I love what he's saying, because his journey is a great example of everybody having to navigate through their own journey to get to where it is that their place of cost. I love what Pastor Free said about redefining, because the reality is the way that call gets implemented is going to be slightly nuanced than everybody else. What did the pandemic teach us? It taught us that people can connect with people and not have a building be the premise of that connection, right? So that's number one. But number two, I think here's the reality. We get this thing in the body of Christ where people talk about, and I have said it as a pastor, people use me, people did me wrong, people prostitute my gifts and all that. And here's what I had to bottom line to this. Ephesians 6:8 says, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he shall receive the same from the Lord. You can never be used if what you have belongs to God in the first place. I am a living witness. Everybody on here is a living witness. Patrick Dubert is a witness too. That the very people that thought they were using you, at most they got you to sow seed. At most it became a place of investment. So I had to learn, you know what, you can't use me. There are moments when I look back before I was a senior pastor and I would say, I wasn't right, that right. And I had to check myself and say, no, you cannot use me. You don't even have the ability to use me. What you did do was extract seed from me. So when we get into this thing of, people using, or, the statement was sucking life out of it. At the end of the day, the bottom line to it is everybody's got to come. Everybody's got to serve. Everybody got to get a bus. And if you can't, as for me in my house, we have a simple thing. You get on the bus, you get ran over by it, or you get up off of it. But at the end of the day, we're going to keep it moving, because, again, you make an idol out of the people. If they become the reason that you stop, they become the reason. And I am guilty of that. I have been guilty. Bishop Bright, you and I didn't talk. I said, man, listen. And you and I done had confidential, classified, protected conversations.
Yes, we have, sir.
G4 classified. G4 classified.
But it is what it is. And so, but at the end of the day, I had to realize the bottom line to it is nobody can do that. It's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And at the end of the day, I love what Pastor Free said. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it best. And I have learned that if you cut the cancer early, it won't contaminate the body. Holding on to people who aren't good at anything in the first place is a disaster in your business and your church. And pastors, let me say this, I'll speak for me. We have been guilty. I have been guilty of you hold somebody in a seat because you are acting like their father and not the leader of an organization. You're responsible for the business, and the business of building the kingdom, not whether or not that person feels good because they're sorry at what you got them doing.
Whoa.
Well, damn.
I think that's a big old period exclamation point right there. Okay, so Pastor Free, I'm gonna throw this one to you. And man, we didn't even get to really just get all the way there. We're gonna get to it though, but I'm gonna throw this one to you. So, how then do you handle kind of what Foreman was just talking about? How do you handle then those folks who don't hold up their end, who don't do what they need to do, who don't operate the way they should? What do you do, and how free do you feel to do it, to excise them out of your organization, out of the organization, when they're not operating the way they should? How do you handle them? Do you let them stay, or do you say, "Hey, kick rocks, get out of here, dude"?
I'm gonna be honest. When we hang up, I'm gonna send Bishop Foreman a seed because he just liberated me to a certain extent. I have been terrible at coddling and making excuses for and holding on to people who just weren't doing their part. Believe it or not, a lot of people think I'm a jerk. They think I'm a difficult person. And consequently, to try to undo Jude, I'm telling you, fix your lips. Fix your lips.
That's all he's doing. Jude ain't doing nothing.
Listen, so honestly, part of me for the years of my pastor that spent a lot of time trying not to be what people think I am. And in some instances, I have erred, by being too patient. When I knew a person just wasn't gifted for a specific position, one of the things that I'm writing a book about it concerning church planting in the African American perspective. One of the things that I learned very early on, because when you don't have anything, you just start plugging people in place trying to get this thing off the ground. And I discovered that just putting people in place without them being called to it or grace for it, it does more harm in the long run than it does good. But that's not something you come in knowing, right? Right? Especially if you've come from a church that was already established and had all these different things in place. I need a men's ministry. So here, you man that don't even know the Bible, and don't know Jesus, but you're a man and you'll say yes to this. Let me put you in place, right? That's kind of what happens. And so, sometimes God will show you like this ain't working, but it's like, but I want to have a shepherd's heart. I want to be patient. And honestly, that has been probably my biggest failure in the years of my pastorate, is just being too forgiving when it comes to individuals who just ain't cutting the mustard. And so, how I have dealt with it has not been how I would prescribe other people to deal with it, because I've been patient. I've let people who weren't doing anything serve until they got burnt out from doing nothing.
How you get burnt out and ain't done nothing?
It's the strangest thing. It's the strangest thing in the world.
Now.
It's the strangest thing in the world. I just let them sit there and do nothing until they're burnt out, and then they quit, and then I can replace them with somebody who will serve the Lord with gladness and excellence.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, both you and you want to talk. Go ahead on.
I'm gonna be 30 seconds. It's amazing how the church is the only place that wants a new person to come in and to deal with the same people that's been in place for 100 years and expect something different to happen. When Joe Biden took over after the insurrection of January 6th, when he was inaugurated, before January 20th, everybody that was in the Trump administration had to offer their resignation. And we are the only entity that is expected to take something that's been in place, but bring in a new guy and say, give us different results than what we already had.
Wow.
And so my personal, and Free, I'm right with you. Bishop Foreman, I'm right with you. My personal thing is, I know what it feels like to be fired. I do not like firing people. However, I've had to grow to learn that you gonna have to either work them into quitting or work them into firing them.
Jude, I'm gonna hit you. Then I have one other question.
There's a difference in your patience and tolerance level when you've planted versus when you've been called. I've been both.
That's true.
When you've been called, you can't move brother so-and-so because he been there longer than you. Okay. Now, I take full blame as you guys. When I planted, I just kind of allowed people in there to fill spaces and spots because I wanted to keep the wheel rolling. It is hard to roll the wheel when the spikes are broken. It's hard to roll the wheel when the chain keeps coming off the sprocket. It is. I can't remember the man that Dr. Dykes in Tyler, Texas, says this about the African American preacher pastor. He retired from Green Acres. He says the African American pastor is the smartest man on the planet. He says the reason is they get called into a church and they are expected to work a miracle with people who haven't seen a miracle in the last 30 years. And he said what's most amazing about him is he takes those people that belongs to somebody else's staff, makes things work out while preaching the heck out of people every Sunday and getting to know the Bible better, only to be mistreated by the very people whose lives they have changed. After 40 years of pastoring Green Acres, on the day of his anniversary, they asked him, how does it feel to have given leadership to this multi-million-dollar situation? His words were, hell at best.
Wow. Wow.
Some of them we don't move, others we just can't. So we have to deal with the chairman of the deacons who doesn't know the work of the deacon. We have to deal with the chairman of the trustees who none of us trust. We got to deal with a youth director who is 60 years old. I mean, y'all find the laugh. Please, we got to deal with a minister of music who can't play "Come to Jesus" in whole notes. But then they say, well, our worship is lacking something. It's lacking the fact that mother sitting over there on that Kawasaki organ playing it like it's a Yamaha with a pair of boxing gloves. But they put the weight of it on us to grow the entire. Y'all stop all that laughing. Try to tell y'all the story. They put the weight of it on all of us. And then we get tired.
I hate Patrick Jubert. I hate him.
I second the motion.
Better for long.
Boxing gloves, cuz?
Yeah.
I second that motion.
Oh my God. All right, we gotta get out of here.
I was on to something, man.
We gotta get out of here. But Deshaun, I need you to talk about that black pastor hate. Not tonight.
You better open that up. Did you say that?
That's a whole nother show. That's got to be a whole nother show.
Next week, I need you to talk about black pastor hate.
Next week, yeah, we can do that. Hey, because of this week, all of us will have experienced 4 or 5 more black pastors hating. So we'll have much to talk about next week.
I will see you guys next week. Thank you, everybody. Come back next week. Black pastor hate.
Mm.
Next